Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and Accio headphones and let the magic begin.
2 Weddings and a Manhunt by Deydralinne, Chapter 22, October 1st, 2003. Draco, can I take the blindfold off yet? Hermione questioned, loudly, her arms gripping onto Draco's elbow as he led her toward the balcony. Draco chuckled and took off her earmuffs. Not yet, nearly. Patience, dear, Draco chuckled, letting her go to open the large French double doors. Draco? She asked nervously. I'm here. He took her hand once more and led her outside. Now you may take it off. Hermione fumbled with it next to him. Draco watched her face as she took in the view before her with a gasp. Hermione stepped forward to the railing and looked down to the quaint street below them. It was quiet here. The island of Port Corral only allowed the use of service cars. This had been the first house his mother had bought with her own money, a place that Lucius had been forbidden from visiting. It had been her quiet haven away for when she needed a break. Lucius had an estate for himself for the same purpose, a dark, damp castle in Ireland. Draco, this is beautiful. Where are we? Hermione said in shock. Portgallis, off the coast of France. I have something else to show you, though, something I'm sure you will appreciate more, Draco said with mirth. The townhouse was a beautiful old rustic type. The outside of it was painted a beautiful light pastel pink. Most of the houses in the area were painted with bright colors. It all added to the charm. Inside, however, was filled with woods and creams and golds. It was barely a 5-minute walk downtown to the beach. The smell of fresh bougainvillea and wisteria, a hint of citrus undertones filled the air. He stepped back inside and toward the small, round dining table where a collection of 6 thick old notebooks sat neatly stacked on top of each other. Hermione stepped toward them with trepidation when Draco pointed at them. Lifting the top one, she opened the cover and gasped loudly. Draco shoved his hands into his trouser pockets and stepped forward to peer over her shoulder with what could have been quite possibly the smuggest smirk to have ever passed across his face. My dearest and most beloved cousin, I hope this manuscript of my latest novel finds you well. The weather here has been dreary, and I have wished infinitely that this rain would dissipate. My poor owl has had a terrible time with the post of late. I hope the weather has been kinder to you. It is my hope that I will be able to visit again when my health is better. It has been too long, my sweet Tryphena. As always, with much love, Jane. What? Hermione screeched. You're related to Jane Austen? She rounded on him in a fury at only just finding out. Draco laughed. She was my great-great-great-great-grandmother's cousin on my mother's father's side. Her mother, Cassandra, married a muggle man named George, but she and Ophelia, who was Tryphena's mother, stayed in touch, even though the rest of the family scorned Cassandra. Thus, Jane and Tryphena grew up in contact. Draco traced the family tree in his mind. Hermione stared at him in shock. Tea? He asked casually, moving away to allow her to process. She opened and closed her mouth in shock several times, failing each time to put a voice to her words. I was thinking that we could take a stroll along the beach this evening. I've made dinner reservations at a restaurant that overlooks the beach. I was thinking it might be nice to walk down there. Hermione nodded, too stunned to speak. She let out a scream as she turned the page and realized that the entire book had been handwritten. Draco laughed and she looked at him with wide, questioning eyes. They all are. Answering her unspoken thoughts. She supposed it made sense considering Persuasion hadn't even been published until 6 months after her death. Her hands were shaking as she placed it back on top. She couldn't help but wonder with a sense of sadness if she had ever made it to visit Draco's great-great-great-great-grandmother. Draco offered her a small, sad smile as he handed her a cup of tea, clearly understanding the change in her mood. My mother told me to let you know that she did get her final visit with Tryphena. She passed away a week after returning home. I do not doubt that you will pore over the diaries at some stage yourself. Diaries? Hermione gasped. Yes, all the women from the Black household have kept diaries over the years. They're currently all at the manor. I can't touch them. They have a curse on them to ward off men. But now that you're a Malfoy and I am Narcissa's son, you should be able to view them. Draco waved dismissively as if he hadn't just told her that all her birthdays had just come true at once. Drink your tea and we will go. He gave her a knowing smile. It was a bizarre feeling to watch Draco carrying her sandals in one hand for her so that she could walk barefoot along the sand. It was equally as bizarre to see him with the bottom of his sandy-colored linen pants rolled halfway up his calves and the top half of his shirt unbuttoned, exposing his chest beneath it. It was barely 4 o'clock and dinner wasn't for a while, but the two of them were enjoying the slow pace that they were traveling at. Every so often, Draco would stop and pick up a shell that he thought was pretty, and he would give it to her. She would slip it into the charm extended pocket of her dress when he wasn't looking. They would dip their toes into the water's edge. Once she had playfully kicked water at him and he had chased her laughing for a few minutes before capturing her with a bruising kiss. She was sitting on a log along the beach watching as Draco bent to examine some of the shells at the water's edge, and she could suddenly picture a future where they might have a little boy, with curls but with Draco's blonde coloring. A future where Draco would be pointing the shells out to him and they would be talking about all the creatures that lived in them before. A future where the blonde toddler would run up to her waving his little arms to show her something, and Draco would be trailing behind him, looking exactly how he did right now, carefree and alive, watching her with those storm-colored eyes of his. The images of that future hit Hermione like a truck, and the sudden ache of it not being a reality hurt. It was an epiphany that she had been falling in love with him for the last few months, the way he was gentle yet dominating with her, that allowed her to be herself in a safe space. The way he laughed with her friends and the softness in which he treated his mother. The way he was fiercely loyal and protective. The effort he would make for her if only she would ask, and even when she wouldn't, he would just know anyways. The way in which she missed him if she went too long without seeing him or feeling his hand stroke the back of her head in passing of comfort or guide her through the doors at the base of her back. She hadn't meant to blurt it out as he approached her wearing a goofy smile and offering her yet another shell. She hadn't meant to stare up at him with a frown on her face and say it so bluntly, but she did. Shock passed over his face, and his smile fell. "What did you just say? Say it again," he whispered. She swallowed, fear seizing her that she had just ruined everything. "I said, I'm in love with you. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything. I just ignore," she whispered, but was cut off by the feel of his hand grasping at her face and the feel of his lips crashing down around hers. He kissed her so hard and so deeply that they toppled backwards into the sand behind her, their kiss never breaking. Draco kissed her like that for a few moments before breaking and resting his forehead against hers. "I'm in love with you too, Hermione. Merlin, I am in love with you too." He captured her lips with what could only be described as raw hunger. Draco reared back, scrambling to his feet and offering Hermione his hand, and pulling her back the way they had walked towards the townhouse. "Draco, what about dinner?" She laughed as he threw that look that clearly said, "Fuck dinner." She giggled and followed along behind him. They barely made it in the house when Draco grabbed her waist, spun her around, and slammed her against the wall. His lips already at her throat, licking at the salt from the beach air. Wait, Hermione giggled. "Give me a minute, but then do that again, 'cause holy Merlin." Draco watched her, and she went back to the kitchen and began pulling open cupboards until she found what she was looking for, a very large glass jar. Draco watched her as she hummed a song while filling the sink with water. He continued to watch as she began pulling things from her pocket, realizing with shock that it was every shell he had given her and was placing them in the sink. When she was satisfied that was all of them, she pulled her dress up and over her head with a smirk, leaving her breast exposed as she was now in nothing but a pair of blue underwear. Hermione walked back towards him. "Now, where were we?" She smirked. He reached forward, lifting her up around the waist, kissing her deeply. He stumbled with her through to the bedroom, growling each time her mouth evaded his. Finally, she found herself placed down on the bed. Draco stood back, taking her underwear with him. It was the first time she had been fully exposed to him since Vegas. He stood looking down at her, his eyes roaming over every inch of her, pinning her to the bed with lust in his eyes. "You really are fucking glorious, Hermione." His voice barely a whisper, but the deep desire in it sent goosebumps erupting all over her and heat rushing to her center. "This hardly seems fair," she grinned back at him, still fully clothed. Draco didn't look away as he undid the few buttons he had bothered to do up in the first place. Beneath it, his defined muscles flexed with every movement. Scars rippled across his chest that she knew had been caused by Harry. She swallowed that guilt and let her eyes roam instead as the shirt dropped to the floor. Her eyes were drawn to the black mark etched into his forearm before flying up to meet his, where he eyed her for any reaction, but she had none. She had no ill feelings toward him and his involvement in the war. They had all been children, something that had become more and more apparent with every passing year. With the flick of a button, he discarded his trousers and boxers, revealing a fully naked version of himself. Hermione's eyes widened at the size of him. She had felt it the other morning, sure, but it was another thing to see him so up close. His eyes were so dark they were nearly black. He came down to balance above her, those eyes staring down at her, his rigid member pressed against her. "Tell me again," he demanded. She didn't need him to tell her what he meant. She knew. "I am in love with you, Draco. I am in love with you, and I am yours," she told him, looking him in the eyes. He rolled back slightly. Coming back forward, he pushed himself into her, and she cried out in pleasure at the sudden fullness. "Fuck, Hermione," he hissed with his own pleasure. Hermione's back arched up toward him, his arms circled under her in response, pulling her closer. His other still held his weight above her. He rolled his hips again, pushing deeper into her than before, pulling husky moans from her in the process. His answering growl was feral, and he was doing all he could to keep control. He rolled his hips again. One of her knees came up to rest at his hip. He wondered if she could hear his heart pounding in his chest, threatening to burst through at any moment. He felt her nails digging into his back, scratching down it. His fingertips dug firmly into her waist. Draco rolled his hips with more force, pulling more of those sweet cries from her. Her body was already trembling from the explosion of her magic recognizing his. Each thrust left her gasping. "That's it, baby," he growled into her neck. "Come for me, darling." Draco moved the arm under her waist to push her knee further back towards her, forcing a deeper angle that rubbed directly against that magic spot inside her. Hermione threw her head back, digging her nails deep enough that Draco was sure she was drawing blood. Her core clamped down around his cock, gripping it tightly, causing him to hiss in restraint. "That's a good girl. That's a good fucking girl," he groaned before slowing his movements as she came down from her high. When she seemed to have returned to earth, he sat up to lean on the heels of his feet, moving both her legs to his shoulders where he pinned them with one of his arms, thrusting into her again frantically. "Oh God, Draco!" Hermione screamed as she threw her head back against the mattress. The energy between them was terrifying. It was hot and it snapped like fire, sparking and crackling away. Her arousal flowed freely, coating him in the hot, sticky mess with every snap of his hips. The pleasure building in the pit of his stomach was blinding. Feeling of her walls fluttering around him with every thrust. Her fingers groped at the sheets, scrunching them tightly. "Fuck, Hermione, that's it, baby," he encouraged. He curled one arm around her thigh, his thumb coming down to circle her clit. His speed picked up to match the speed of his thrust. Her moans were loud and like music to his ears. "Come on, my love, give me another one," he groaned. "You can do it. You're fucking gorgeous, especially when you're coming all over this cock. It's yours, you know. I'm fucking yours, Hermione, forever. So use me. Use me to make yourself come." His words sent her undone, her back arching off the bed, shattering around him with the scream of his name. "Oh, fuck, Hermione." His eyes closed as he followed her over that edge. He released her legs with a shaky breath, lowering them to either side of him. Draco leaned down and placed a kiss on her forehead, the tip of her nose, and then her soft lips. "Draco?" she whispered. tracing her nails up and down his back. He murmured as he began to stroke her hair. I don't want to get divorced. His laughter filled the room at her statement. Hermione, you ripped that option off the table the second you told me you loved me, you silly witch. I am never letting you go.